Welcome to Change and Triumph. We are here with Antonio Garrido, and I'm pretty sure I said your name with the right spin. Is that right?
Close enough. I don't want you to hurt yourself. It's Garrido, but most people say Garrido. But anyway, that's fine.
Well, that's only if you're American and don't know any Spanish. I know how to roll those R's. Well, before we talk about my daily leadership, something that you have established, and the 4 books or coaching CEOs of billion-dollar companies, I want to go back. Where did your story actually begin, Antonio?
Crikey. I'll keep it as short as I possibly can because genuinely no one's interested apart from you and me. When I first came out of university, which gives you a clue that I went back, but when I first came out of university 1 million years ago, I was an architect, and I kind of always wanted to be an architect, and that's what the plan was, and I was very happy to do that. I then, more by luck than judgment today, I found myself not being on the drawing board very much. I quite quickly found myself managing a drawing office, which wasn't planned and honestly wasn't in my skill set. And then before I knew it, I was then managing like a department, and then I was managing a division, and then before I knew it, I was managing a company, and it just kind of rolled on from that. And throughout there somewhere, I went back to uni kind of part-time to learn strategic business management, marketing, and I was super duper lucky that, frankly, I don't think I was a very good architect is what happened. Or, no, that's probably true. Turns out I was a better manager than I was an architect. And through a whole range of bonkers pieces of surreptitiousness, I found myself, more by luck than judgment, working for some tremendous, and I mean this sincerely, and it's hard to overstate it, but world-class leaders who all decided to take it upon themselves, for whatever reason, to help me become a really good leader as well. So I'm not entirely sure why, but it did happen. I think I was very careful about the organizations that I joined, but I was just employed in roles that got bigger and bigger and bigger for companies that got bigger and bigger and bigger. We won awards, and I was the youngest ever general manager of what you might call a, Fortune 60 company, and we did really, really, really well. And I guess that's where this started, really, my daily leadership, which is the organization we set up a few years ago. Before this, I also set up a company about 14 years ago in Miami. It was a sales and business development company, a training company, and a coaching company. So I took everything that I'd learned, applied it to that. We were, by any measure, really rather successful in that organization. Again, I don't want to overstate it.
Well, I think you get to boast and brag at this point in your career, honestly.
I didn't come on here just to kind of blow my own trumpet, but let's just say
You told me that you come from a very humble beginning. Your father was a shepherd from Spain, and from a family so poor there was no running water, no electricity, 7 children, no hospital. And if you broke a leg before you were able to go to a hospital, that's it. Something will happen. And I would love to know what would happen if you broke a leg in that town. But what was your actual family like?
Well, just to answer you either died or you walked with a limp for the rest of your life. My father, he's 93. It's his birthday just the other day. He was a shepherd. He never went to school. He still can't really read or write to any kind of standard, really. For 60 odd years, I've been getting birthday cards that all look exactly the same because somebody wrote it down for him once and he just copies it out, and I'm not entirely sure he knows what he's writing.
Oh my goodness.
So he never went to school, but he's actually super intelligent. He doesn't know anything, but there's a difference between knowledge and intelligence, right? And so,
absolutely.
And I think probably because he had no education, or rather he had no formal education. He had the most amazing education through what he learned from his kind of extended family in the village. And some of those lessons are just, you would never get at a Harvard.
Understandable.
Yeah, but just some amazing, amazing lessons. If we had 3 or 4 hours to share some of those with you. But anyway, the point was that by the time he started his own family and the kids started along, me, my brother and my sister, he'd started his own business, and he had one of his many, many, many kind of philosophies is he wanted us all to have a really good education, because he wanted us to have, the opportunities that he never had. And the way that he described that was, in this world, the strong take from the rich, but the clever take from the strong. He would always talk about potential, and he always said that we all had, tremendous potential. Unfulfilled potential is a terrible thing. So considering where he started from to where he ended up, he still knew that he had enormous potential, although he had no advantages that modern life affords most of us. But I think he got quite close to his potential, considering where he started to where he ended.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so when my brother and I, lots of people in the family, when we all started our own business, all different businesses, he was more proud when I started my own small business as a solopreneur originally, and then obviously it grew and grew into multi-millions. He was prouder then of, me or us than when I was running a multi-billion, with a B, dollar organization for someone else. Because to use the words of Shania Twain, that great philosopher that we all know, that don't impress me much. Like he wasn't impressed by somebody running a company for somebody else. He would much rather we all run our own small business. To be clear, he didn't want us to run a small business. He wanted to run our own business. And if it was a big business, terrific. And the way that he would describe that to us was, it's better to be the head of a mouse than the tail of a lion. In other words, in his philosophy, it's better to have your own business, even if it's, 2 or 3, 4-man company, versus running 17,000, which is what I ended up doing before I started my own companies. That's when he was proudest. Not that I did any of this to make him proud. That was just a nice thing.
When you were young, did that sound like wisdom, or did it sound like pressure?
Gosh, that's a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that before. I think it sounded like wisdom. I don't think he ever pressured us into doing anything. I'm trying to remember. He was I think he was happy. He was happy so long as we were trying. And so if you try, we would often go around, this is turning to a conversation about my dad. We would often go around, because he's Spanish, right? So we would go around on a Sunday to have Sunday lunch. My mum was Greek, by the way, from Athens. So that's
wonderful.
Quite unique. We would go around to have Sunday lunch. And he would go around the table and he would ask everybody where they had failed this week. And if anybody said, I've had a pretty good week, I haven't failed anywhere, he'd be really disappointed. And he said, well, if you haven't failed, then you haven't learned anything. And that's a week wasted. And that's really how he used to think about things. And his favourite expression was from a Formula One hero of his, which is car racing. A chap called Mario Andretti. I don't even know if he's still alive.
Of course I know who Mario Andretti is. For some reason, my ex-husband used to always say, who do you think you are, Mario Andretti, every time I sped down the street. So I got to learn who Mario Andretti was. It was like a thing he'd always say. Who are you, Mario Andretti?
Hey, small world. So my dad, the expression that Mario Andretti had that my dad kind of clung to was, Mario Andretti had said at some point, if you're not terrified going around the corners, you're not going fast enough, right? And but Dad would encourage us to take risks because, like he said, what's the best way to teach a child, for a child to learn how to not fall off a bike, is to fall off a bike, right? That's how you learn how to not by falling off a bike. So I don't think he ever pressured us, but what he did was encourage us to be the best that we could be and encourage us to fail, because then you learn. So there are good failures and there are bad failures. A good failure is you make a mistake, you learn from it, you don't do it again, and that has made you stronger. versus a bad mistake, which is you make a mistake and then you make the same mistake and then you repeat it and make the same mistake again and again and again. They're bad mistakes. So he encouraged us to take risks. He encouraged us to succeed, to reach our potential, to be brave. Oh, by the way, so the thing that he would say, and I think I talked about it in this book behind me, or maybe it was another one of my books, that success equals failure plus persistence. And if you are ultimately persistent, so another one of his favorite quotes was by a guy called Muhammad Ali. All of his references are fairly dated because he's ancient, right? So Muhammad Ali said his favorite expression was, can't remember it in Japanese, but basically, get knocked down 7, get up 8. And so if you get knocked down 7 but get up 8, you can't be defeated. So Dad's view of success equals failure, which is good because you learn, plus persistence. Never, ever, ever give up. And I think his early childhood, when you think about what he had to endure, made him very resilient and persistent. And, for him to get to where he was, to where he ended up.
Of course.
That took persistence. So did he pressure us? No. But did he encourage dogged determination and persistence? He did. But I never felt pressured. I'd have to ask my brother and sister if they ever did. I don't think they did. Or maybe, he treated them differently, but I suspect not.
Now, going back to, your dad obviously worked very hard and he got you all into school. You became an architect, so you went to a great university. But you said that, your idea of that architect journey was that you were going to be building cathedrals and airports, but ended up doing Mrs. Miggin's kitchen extension. What did you carry out of that that still shows up in how you lead today, how you help so many leaders today?
That's another great question. I think what architecture taught me more than anything else, I'll tell you a story, which I think maybe illustrates it. So I was working for a company and I got headhunted to go and work for another company. And I really fancied this job I was going to go to. And so it hurt me to do so, but I handed my notice in. Oftentimes when somebody hands their notice in, I always think and talk to them about there's 2 ways to leave a company. One is you're leaving because you're moving towards something better and bigger, right? You're moving towards something. Or sometimes people leave a company because they're moving away from something, right?
Okay.
And so I was definitely not moving away from something. I was moving towards something. So I thought it'd be a really good opportunity. Turns out it was a great choice. But so I handed my notice in. And in that organization, whoever you reported to kind of didn't matter. If you were on the exec team, then the VP of HR would write your reference, if you follow the logic of this. So it didn't matter if you reported to the group chairman, VP of HR would still write your reference, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. This guy called Mike. Anyway, I was walking through the car park one day and I saw Mike, the HR guy. And he kind of told me to stop. So I stopped and he got out of his car and he said, Antonio, I hear that you're leaving. And I said, yeah, Mike, I am. And he said, such a shame. I said, oh, thanks very much, Mike. I said, now, you better write me a good reference. Right. So
of course.
Quite well. I said, you better write me a good reference. He said, I will write you a good reference and I will say of you the most complimentary thing that I can say of any leader. I thought, gosh, this sounds interesting. So I said, oh, which is? Right. So he said, the best thing I can say of any leader is that they are solutions oriented. Right. Oh, tell me more. And he said, you're the most solutions-oriented leader I've ever worked with. I said, thanks, Mike. What do you mean by that? He said, well, you would come to, a board meeting or whatever, and there would be problems. There'd be challenges. Of course there would be, because that was our job, right? And he would say, hey, guys, here's the problem. I've been thinking about it. This is almost a, carbon copy. Again, how old am I? Copy and paste, I should say. copy and paste.
Oh, you know, it's so funny. I get that reference. Yeah, no one knows what carbon copy is anymore, right?
So we were in the car park and he said, you would say, here's the problem, guys. And we could do A, or we could do B, or we could do C. Or if anyone's got a better idea, we'll do that. And he said, you were never married to A, B, or C, and you were very happy. Your ego didn't get in the way. You were very happy to do something else. But you would never come with a problem without having already considered some solutions. That makes you, that's what he meant by problem orient, solutions orient. Okay, great. You know, there are some people who've got a problem for every solution. Well, you seem to have a solution for every problem. And if you went in a different direction, you didn't sulk about it and you would just throw yourself into it. We were very big in that organization on consensus. And consensus is whether or not I personally agree with the decision, I will support it if it's been reached openly, honestly, and fairly. So he said, you were really, really great at that. I said, okay, great, fine. Okay, what's that got to do with your question? I think when I was learning architecture, or when I was studying architecture, there are, when you create a building, whether it's Mrs. Miggins's kitchen extension, or a house, or a new office block, and I did actually design some award-winning buildings.
Great.
There are a million problems to solve, and you can solve them in a million different ways. Nothing that you could ever draw, somebody took it and built it and it was perfect. like this is no such thing.
That's why we have engineers.
Right. And I think what I learned more than anything is a really well expressed problem is half solved. If you can really understand the problem really well, you're halfway to solving it. And so I think that's what I learned. So now back into my leadership world, either working for other organizations or my own, when somebody says, hey, boss, we've got a problem, and I would really, really understand the problem, you know, to the extent that it's possible to understand it. And I think in really well understanding it, you kind of get halfway towards the problem. But here's another point. This is really important. I think a lot of leaders do with learning this too. When I was learning, this is, again, it's going to sound rather grand, but when I was learning to fly, I decided to fly, to learn how to fly. Something that I really learned from when I was learning how to fly, a couple of things was, well, one of my first lessons, which I loved very much, and I wish a lot of leaders had this as a mentality before they embark on a plan.
Right.
Where so many of them embark on a plan and then kind of give up halfway through. Right, or things get difficult, or they get distracted. And one of the things that my flight instructor told me, I'm going to tell you two stories, but the first one was when you're ready to launch a plane, right, to take off or launch a plan. So everybody's lined up and we're ready to go. And before you hit go, right, or throttle up and release the brakes, right, before you actually do it, you have a decision to make. Are we going to do this thing or are we not going to do this thing? And if we're not going to do this thing, fine. But if we are going to do it, success equals failure equals persistence, we are not going to stop until it's achieved, right? So bring that back to aeroplanes. My instructor said to me, look, takeoff is optional, but landing is compulsory. Are we going to take off? Because if we do, not only are we committing to the takeoff, we have to then commit to the landing. Otherwise, you're going to crash and die, right? So
Absolutely.
I think a great lesson, I think. Then the second one was this. A pilot, let's imagine we have a pilot going from JFK to London Heathrow. A pilot is perfectly okay. They register their plan with the FAA and they say, look, here's where we are. Here's where we're starting. Here's our goal. Here's our objective. Here's the resources that we have, right, to deal with that, because you can't refuel midair, right? So here's what we have. And this is where we're going to go to, and here's what our plan looks like. Now, there's no pilot on Earth who then follow that plan doggedly without taking into account the circumstances that are presented as you're trying to execute that plan.
Okay.
In general, it's amazing how a plan... It's Mike Tyson, the boxer. Mike Tyson said it's amazing how a plan goes out the window as soon as you get punched in the face. But most plans, you end up getting punched in the face. In the same way you're flying a plane. So you have a flight plan, but then there's weather and traffic and instructions from the ground. And you make, from one airport to the other airport, 1,000 course corrections. You don't get grumpy about it. That's what you have to do. It's baked into being a pilot. 1 million course corrections. Once you've taken off, you then have to land, and you'll do a million course corrections along the way. And nobody gets grumpy about it. So what's that got to do with leadership? Just start. I used to work for a boss, and he had behind him carved into a massive wooden block. And I would say, hey, Stephen, we've got a problem. It's okay. What's the problem? We talk about it. And I said, what do you think we should do? And then he would just point behind him at this thing that was carved behind his desk. It was enormous, this thing. It cost a fortune to over from Indonesia. And the sign said, be bold. Boldness has magic and power all its own. So he would say, just do it. Make a start and course correct along the way, like a pilot does. Just make a start and course correct and figure it out, and you'll land. My dad was like that. He would
that's wonderful.
Start, you'll figure it out. And so
that's true.
Coming back to Mike that said to me, you're very solutions oriented. I think what I'm trying, if I could have all of my people, if I could wish something for them all, it would be solutions oriented, make a start, course correct along the way, learn, and never give up, I guess.
Love that. So here's the one that keeps coming back to my mind. I mean, when we spoke last, you talked about My Daily Leadership, and you started My Daily Leadership from absolute zero. You were already retired, had a phenomenal career, and now you moved to Miami, and you decide to start My Daily Leadership from zero and put $100,000 of your own money on the line. And, as you're watching this money kind of get eaten away because it's not going, and you're very good at being solutions oriented. Sometimes things don't just exactly go the way you want. And what were those months like when you were watching the number drop? What did you tell yourself to keep going?
Yeah, there were some dark days early on, I have to say. So we started, so that's not this business, started another business in Miami, and then I'll tell you how this business went, but the trajectory was the same. So I'd never run a business before for myself, right? And I ended up, as I mentioned, working for very large organizations. And the good thing about large organizations is they have lots of resources behind them. And there was lots of people. If I needed something, I would just say, hey, Bill, I need this thing. And then magically 20 minutes later, it would, because if I looked behind me, it was like the cast of Gandhi. And suddenly I found it wasn't like that. When I started my own business, I was now the head of a mouse versus the tail of a lion, right? And so there's something there's something to be said for being a lion. So when I started the Miami business, in fact, I started the Miami business with my brother. When I landed in Miami, I genuinely did not have a little black book of people, and I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anyone. Didn't have a social security number, didn't have a bank account, didn't have a car, didn't have an office, didn't have a photocopy, didn't have a telephone, didn't have any of those things. I thought, well, we'll just figure it out. So I felt a little bit like my dad in a new country, right? And everything was new and different. So if I'd have said to somebody in Miami, hey, if you were in the UK, you could come to me and say, hey, Antonio, where do I buy stamps? I'll tell you where to buy stamps. But I was in Miami and I was like, I don't know anything about, I don't even know where you buy stamps. And it's not that I needed stamps, just the point being, I'm not familiar with this whole world. And the first few months, Tené were rough. I think we started the business in October. So October, November, December. This is 14, 15 years ago. I think in those 3 months, we did $12,000 in revenue. In 3 months. Now that wasn't enough to keep my family together, my brother's family together. And that wasn't going to cut it. So we had some money, but we were kind of burning through that money. And that was okay because that's what you would expect. So in the first 3 months, we did 12,000. In the next year, the whole of the year, I think we did something like 30,000. Disaster. And I kept saying to my wife, I don't know, listen, let's just jack this. I don't know why we're doing this. And she said, no. You always say you got to put your bum on a horse, but you've only got one bum, and this is your horse, and you've got to do it. You've got to figure it out. And it took us a long time to figure it out. Then what happened was we figured it out. And then for the next, 10 years. Then we went to 125,000, then 250, then 500, then 1 million, then 2 million, then 4 million, then 8 million. Right? We doubled. You don't need many years of doubling before things get quite impressive. Right?
That is very impressive.
Yeah, we doubled year after year after year. Well, what was going to be kind of, as you say, a semi-retirement became really busy for a few years, and then I could back off a little bit, let the business, because businesses are like trains. It takes a long time, a lot of momentum. And
My Daily Leadership. Is that from the book My Daily Leadership or one of your many others?
Correct. No, that's
okay.
This
Awesome.
is my third. Yeah, my third.
Phenomenal. Okay. So that book has won 2 awards about authority, credibility.
I'll tell you. Okay. No, the story I want to tell you about what changed to make the business thrive rather than just survive, I guess. And this will take me a few minutes, but I think it's an important story for people listening that are interested in buying and growing and financing businesses. I heard a story. I'll try and keep it short. The full story is available in the book, and it's an amazing story, and it's about fish in Japan. So in the 60s, if anybody is listening that are Japanese, just forgive me if I make some sweeping generalizations, but Japanese people like fish, right? And Japan is made of lots of tiny islands, some big, and that's what Japan looks like. Fishing was very unregulated. So if you lived by the sea and you had a boat, go fish. And then people would go and fish, and then they would eat what they caught, and they would sell what they didn't eat. That's how a lot of people in Japan would subsist, really. Anyway, because it was unregulated and the population started to grow, what happened was there were more and more fishermen fishing in the off the shores of Japan. What was happening is that the sea started to get overfished, and so the quality and the size of the fish started to come down. And because the Japanese love their sushi and they love fresh fish and all of that kind of stuff, they were complaining because the fish quality was going down, but the cost was going up because competition was rising and all of that good market demand stuff. And so what was happening is some of the fishermen decided to, well, if we're really going to compete in this world, we need to buy bigger boats and we need to go out further to get the bigger fish, right? With the local fish couldn't get to just off the shores of Japan. Are you following me so far?
I sure am.
Great. So they were getting bigger boats to go further out to get bigger fish. And the problem with bigger boats is the boats cost money, the crew cost money, and you were going out further, and so you weren't going in and out in a day. You were maybe going out for a couple of days and then come back. Trouble is, the fish was now a day old or 2 days old, and the Japanese palate did not like. They wanted fresh fish.
Of course.
And so the quality was still going down, but the cost was going up because the boats and this, So some of the bigger fishermen said, okay, here's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to get an even bigger boat, more cost, more crew, more cost. And we're going to have to get boats that when we catch the fish, we freeze the fish straight away. And so we need a nice factory on the boat, cost goes up, right? And so they were going further out for longer to make the trip worthwhile, and now they're catching lots and lots and lots of fish, freezing them on the boat, bringing them back a week later, and then selling that as fresh fish. But again, the Japanese palate could taste the difference between a fresh fish and a frozen fish.
Absolutely.
So now what they're going to do, so some of the bigger guys bought even bigger boats, and these boats, because nobody liked frozen fish, they wanted the fresh fish. They got these boats and they said, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get these huge boats with huge tanks in the boat. We're going to fill them with seawater. We're going to catch a fish. We're going to put it in the tank so it's swimming around in the tank, still alive, so it's not frozen. And then when we bring it back at the end of the week, we'll then kill it, but it's now fresh because we've only just
Absolutely. I think it'd be pretty fresh at that point.
Right.
Does that work?
No. Because pretty quickly a fish in a tank with lots of other things, it's now not in the ocean, got fat and lazy and stupid just in a few days, right?
In a few days.
Yeah.
Now, what does a fat, lazy, stupid fish taste different than a different fresh fish?
Well, because fat content was different, the quality, the muscle wasn't as good. And so the cost was still skyrocketing and the quality was coming down. And the Japanese fishing industry was in serious problems. Okay? Are you still with me?
I am.
So okay, great. One of the CEOs of the largest fishing fleet in Japan that spent billions on all of this stuff was having lunch with one of his best friends. His best friend was the CEO of Tokyo Aquarium, right? Where if you Tokyo, you want to go and look at fish, that's the place. So this guy knew fish. Anyway, so he was telling him this problem. He says, we've got a terrible problem. He says, why? What's the problem? And he explained everything they tried to do. And they're now got these huge vats of seawater with fish in who pretty quickly get fat and lazy and stupid, and nobody wants to eat that. And as far as he was concerned, it was going to be the end of his business. And the guy said to him, from Tokyo Aquarium, well, just put a shark in the tank. What do you mean put a shark in the tank? He says, yeah, just put a shark in the tank. Yeah, but the shark will eat all of the fish. No, the shark will eat some of the fish, but they won't eat all of the fish. Just put a shark in the tank.
And that'll keep them muscular and moving.
Crikey, they were like Olympic athletes by the time they got back to shore.
Talk about learning how to course correct. That's a lot of course correction.
A lot of course correction. And that saved the Japanese fishing industry. Okay, what's that got to do with anything? Every leader that we work with, every quarter, we have a shark in the tank conversation. So come back to Miami, and I said, what are we going to do? Let's put a shark in the tank of this business. What does that look like? The first shark that we put in the tank was, instead of operating out of an office in a building, we bought the whole second floor, right? Which is lunacy, because we were like operating out of our office, and then we bought the whole second floor, we built it out, we kitted it out. It's the most amazing state-of-the-art training and coaching facility. And now it's like, if you build it, they will come. So now we have to fill this space. So this was the shark in our tank. So we constantly actively make ourselves uncomfortable by putting our own shark in our tank, right? Make us course correct, blah, 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 blah. So that's one of the ways that...
So are you saying that the shark is going all out and putting all the money into the entire floor? Or is the shark something else?
No. The shark it could be a commitment. It could be, let's hire a CFO or a CRO. Let's hire a new team. Let's commit some new machinery. Let's make a super big, hairy, audacious commitment that you now have to live. And so it doesn't only have to be money, but it could be a decision. You know, we're kind of half playing in this market, half playing in this market, half playing in this market. Let's go all out in one market, for example. Or AI, kind of half playing with AI. Are we doing AI or are we not doing AI? Do you know what I mean? It's like figure out what's going to force us to the next level, and then force us to the next level. And you just have to find comfort in discomfort and put a shark in your tank, and then you don't drown. You figure it out. If you're solutions oriented, you figure it out. If you are persistent and never give up, you figure it out. So I think it's just work out and what the next thing would look like, and do it anyway, even if it's scary. Just do it. Just do it
anyway.
Yeah.
The good old Nike, just do it. Do you remember the 1989 speech called Do It? Yes, Art Williams, one of my favorites. Anytime I need a pick-me-up and I need to just do it, I listen to that speech, and I probably listen to it 4 or 5 times a year.
I've probably listened to it 50 times a year. I've sent it, I can't tell you how I've sent that to. Great. Do it. Great.
Just do it.
Just do it.
It's not just do it. Yeah. It's great. Do it.
Yeah. Don't talk about it. Do it. One of our clients has a lovely expression which I really like, and I've used it so many times. that so many leaders, they have great plans. This, we're going to do that, we're going to do that. And I want to say, great, just do it. So I say, you say those things, but your calendar doesn't actually betray that those are your real priorities. Because any leader listening to this, I don't care what you say your priorities are. Look at your calendar for the last month. That will tell you exactly what your priorities actually are. And anyway, so when he was talking about leaders and stuff, he would say, what you do speaks so loudly that I can't hear what you say. In other words, don't just say it, just do it. Where the rubber meets the road is the doing of the thing. Just do it. And I encourage people, be rational with it, be thoughtful about it, be strategic with it, but have a plan, do it course correct. Make sure that you know what the early milestones of success look like, you know what those guidelines look like, you know how you're going to measure it, you know what good looks like, you know when you're going to review it. So I'm not just saying just helter-skelter do stuff, have a plan, be very thoughtful and considered about it, make the plan big and hairy and audacious and put a shark in your tank type of plan. Commit to it, make a decision. Are we going to take off this plane? Is this plane going to take off? Takes off. I am not going to rest until we land this plane. And if all of that's in place, just do it. Just be bold. It has magic.
Love that. So you've got an awesome open invitation for listeners to crash a class, right? And observe a live My Daily Leadership session. So alongside leaders from other industries, which is very, very exciting. And you've got a new book coming this spring, 2027, which will be your third award-winning book. Absolutely.
My fourth book.
Your fourth book. Okay, you're fourth. So I just want to make sure. So tell us a little bit about that invitation.
So we do a lot of private work, we do a lot of public work. The private work is if you employ our organization to just look after you and your team and grow and develop your team, and that's private. And no one else comes into any of our coaching and training, of course. But not everyone's Coca-Cola, not that they're a client. But not everyone's a big organization. Some organizations are only, 5, 6, 7, up to 100 people. To employ us just to work with you, it'd be so cost prohibitive, right? Because of what we charge per hour. So what we do is we also have some public classes where you would come to a class and there'd be 30 other CEOs of 30 different businesses all trying to do something else. And we just help grow and develop leadership, because if you develop the leader, they develop other leaders and they develop the business. And so if you want your business to grow your people. And if you want your people to grow yourself. And that's how your business will grow, right? So this class is every 2 weeks, every other Wednesday, come hell or high water. Come along as our guest, genuinely no strings attached. Come along to a class, kick the tires. If you learned something brand new that you never knew before, stick around and we'll tell you how to become a client. If you come and you think, there's nothing new here, then go with our blessing. But that's never the case.
That show link, that'll be right in the show notes. And this show is called Change and Triumph, looking back at everything you've survived, everything you've learned, and everything you've built right now. What has been your greatest change and what has been your greatest triumph?
My personal greatest change. One of the problems of being solutions oriented is we try and do things ourselves as well. So I've got really good at delegating really effectively. It's really easy to delegate poorly. So I think that's that. My biggest triumph, that's a great question. I'll tell you what happened. I read a great book called The One Thing, and there's probably about 6 or 7 books that have changed my life. And one of them was The One Thing. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to do this thing, what's the one thing? And anyway, read the book. It's a phenomenal book.
It is a phenomenal book. I love that book.
Do it, right? So anyway, what's my point? I said, okay, well, what's my big, hairy, audacious goal again? right? I started journaling and writing about where I was going to pay myself. I wrote a check to myself for $1 million, right? And put a
Of
date
course.
on it and signed it. I wrote a check to myself for $1 million with a date and everything. Not long after I started doing that, our biggest ever monthly check came in from a client. I don't want to say who the client was, but it was our first, this was in Miami. It's our first, what I would call serious monthly recurring check. And it was for, I have a photocopy of it down here. I don't want to show you because then you'll see who the client was. Big client, and it was for, I think it was $86,000. It was for a 1 month that was recurring. And I thought, I'm definitely going to get this thing paid to myself. Anyway, what's my point? My point is when I cashed that check to myself from the business, I think that was the thing. That was the point that I thought, this is real. And now, with 100% conviction and credibility, I can help other people do the same. And it was that, up to that point, I thought I could do it. And then I thought, then I knew I could do it.
You
and
knew
all the
you
things
could do it.
all the things I'd learned along the way and applied were real. And there'll be some people listening going, $1 million. I wrote myself a check for $1 million just last week. But for me, that was big news from a son of a shepherd from Spain for the first time, where that $1 million was entirely generated by me. It meant a lot. Another one that meant a lot was I started that company with my brother, and I started this company with my daughter, and they're both going to run that when I'm not around, and so legacy as well. So I think, I don't know, the $1 million check, I don't know which
That
is
was your
first.
biggest triumph. You know what? They say when you make your first million, and I don't know that that was your first million, but it was the first million that you made on your own.
Yeah,
And
it was the first.
after you wrote that check, right?
It was the
Amazing. Phenomenal. I love it, love it, love it. I am so grateful to have had you on. I'm going to go ahead and, thank you so much, Antonio. We'd love to have you
welcome.
back.
Yeah, okay, good.